Welcome to Pop-O-Holics, the show about hot takes hotter than pancakes, where every week we sit down and we talk about the latest in pop culture and film industry news, as well as what we've been consuming, what media we've been consuming ourselves. I am your substitute host, Chris Conkling, and as always, I'm joined by one of my best friends,
Brian Dupree.
Brian, how's your week been? How are you doing?
Week's been pretty good. A lot of good movies coming out lately. There's been some sleepers.
Yeah.
Barbarian, something that's been getting a lot of attention.
Did you see it?
I did see it, and
How was it?
It was so great. The marketing works so well because the movie kind of changes at some point. It's being I kind of think of it as the Malignant of this year, the sort of movie where it takes a turn. Either you're on board and going to love it, or you're not going to be on board for the tone of it. But don't read about it. Go watch it. If you're into horror movies at all, this one is going to be worthwhile for you.
I've only heard amazing things about it, but it also sounds absolutely terrifying. So I might have to wait and see it when it comes out on VOD.
I will say, Chris, there's some giant laughs in it.
Oh, really?
If you're on board for it, yes, but it is very tense as well. So
sweet. That makes me really excited. I've been really swamped at work lately, so really the only thing I've gotten to see is the thing that we are going to be covering tonight, which is Clerks III. We're going to be talking about that later in the show. What do we do here? What is a roadmap for Pop-O-Holics? Well, like I said, every week we sit down and we talk about the latest in film industry and pop culture news, and we also talk about what media we've been consuming ourselves. First, we touch on our community section, take care of a little housekeeping, and then Brian is going to tackle that news that I mentioned in Brian's Wacky News Corner, and then we're going to follow that up tonight with our review of Clerks III. So why don't we just jump right in to our community section? As we talk about every single week, we have a Throwback Thursday episode coming out this Thursday. This week, we're going to be spotlighting our conversation about Tommy Boy from 2020. We were doing a slapstick comedy month. This episode is particularly interesting because our usual host, Christian Cady, invited both of his brothers on to be guests for Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy was a really special movie for them growing up. So this Thursday, check out our Twitter at Pop-O-Holics. We're going to post a link to that audio episode where we have Ryan and Bobby, Christian's brothers. It was a very interesting conversation, a lot of laughs. I think you guys will enjoy it. Brian, is there anything else you want to add about our Tommy Boy episode from 2020?
it was so much fun. You know, we're all big Tommy Boy fans. Slight warning, the audio is not the highest quality for that episode because of recording circumstances.
Technical difficulties.
Still very worthwhile listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, guys, we have a giveaway this month. Last month, we gave away a 4K digital copy of the original Predator film. This month, in September, we're giving away a 4K digital copy of Spider-Man No Way Home. And all you have to do to enter the giveaway is head on over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Pop-O-Holics, subscribe to the channel, and comment on any of our weekly uploads from September. You can comment on all 5 weekly uploads once to get 5 entries into the contest. And then at the beginning of October, you will be entered into a randomizer, and we will choose the winner who receives Spider-Man No Way Home. So head on over to our YouTube channel, like I said, and do that. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump right in to Brian's Wacky News Corner.
Start on wacky, start on wacky. Everyone. So I just got to say up top, we said that we were going to talk about the Emmys this week, and we are going to talk briefly about the Emmys this week. But after having seen who won, I only watched the very first, probably like half hour of the ceremony personally. Kenan Thompson was doing a good job so far. I've heard conflicting things about the ceremony at large. It was a little bit silly at times, but some of the jokes were landing from what I saw. In terms of what was actually winning, Chris and I have seen very few of the actual winners here. So we don't have all that much to say about the quality of these shows, but from the sounds of them, they all seem like they're worthwhile watching. And there's a few of them that I've been meaning to watch. So going to quickly run through this list of winners. And I apologize for any mispronunciations of names here. So starting with drama series, Succession won for best drama series. Comedy series, Ted Lasso, the one show that Chris and I have seen from the Emmys.
Yes.
Ted Lasso won for best comedy series.
We never claimed to be good at our jobs, Brian. Only that we do them.
We're still here, and we're providing for the people.
Our job is to let you know who won, so then you can go out and explore the content yourselves.
Watch it. Look at it.
Check it out.
Limited or anthology series, we have The White Lotus, something that I've heard only great things about, and I've been meaning to watch for a while. Best lead actress in a comedy series went to Jean Smart for Hacks. Best lead actress in a drama series went to Zendaya for Euphoria. We have for Squid Game, we have Hwang Dong-hyuk, who won for best male, best lead actor in a drama, in a drama. We have writing for a comedy series, Quinta Brunson from Abbott Elementary, a show that, again, I've only heard great things about, and I know is running for a second season that's starting, I believe, this week, actually. So Quinta Brunson won for that, for the writing. Jason Sudeikis for Ted Lasso won best lead actor in a comedy series. Jared Carmichael for Rothaniel wrote best writing for a variety special. SNL, as per usual, won for best variety show.
8 years in a row, I believe.
There's
Go
only
Lorne
one in the
Michaels.
game, and they're doing it well. Best writing for a limited or anthology series or movie, Mike White for The White Lotus. Best competition program, Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls. Best lead actress in a limited or anthology series or movie, Amanda Seyfried for The Dropout. Best supporting actress in a limited or anthology series or movie, Jennifer Coolidge for The White Lotus. Variety talk series, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. Supporting actor in a comedy series, Brett Goldstein for Ted Lasso. Supporting actress in a comedy series, Cheryl Lee Ralph for Abbott Elementary. Julia Garner won for, I cut off the... This is best supporting actress in a drama series, I believe, Julia Garner for Ozark. And then supporting actor in a drama series is Matthew McFadden for Succession. We also have supporting actor in a limited or anthology series or movie for Murray Bartlett for The White Lotus. Lead actor in a limited or anthology series or movie, Michael Keaton for Dopesick. And finally, we have best writing for a drama series, Jesse Armstrong for Succession, and best directing for a comedy series, MJ Delaney for Ted Lasso. So that is the Emmys. I apologize that we don't have too much to say about that.
Congratulations to all the winners.
Yes, exactly.
Well deserved.
And I'm sure there are plenty of things to look up and clips to watch online if you're trying to get into any of the Emmys goodies. So moving into some other stuff that happened. Giant Disney and Pixar D23 showcase, Marvel, Star Wars, 20th Century Pictures, a bunch of things announced here. We can't possibly talk about them all, but we have a few IGN articles that lay out pretty much everything, very extensively, links out to plenty of information if you're interested in any of the stuff that is here. We're going to go through a handful of things. The first one, for the first time in 100 years, Disney Animation is collaborating with a studio outside of itself for a project called Iwaju. This is in collaboration with a Nigerian company called Kugali Media and is a love letter to Nigeria, set in a futuristic version of Lagos, and follows a wealthy heiress and a poor boy named Tola, who's described as stubborn, eager, and charismatic. He teams up with a questionable ally, Oten, over the course of the story. We don't know too much about this aside from this, and there's an image that is shown here. Conceptually, I love this. The fact that Disney is branching out and collaborating is kind of
It's great.
a reason why I thought this was worthwhile. And I got to imagine that's going to only create benefits to expanding their the people that they're working with. So definitely looking forward to that. And it's planning to come out in 2023. It's a series. No official date for that at this point. It is deep in production though. So that's Iwaju. We also got the first trailer for Hocus Pocus 2, which is a movie that's coming to Disney Plus September 30th. So very soon, actually, and has been announced and talked about for a while. We have Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy all back reprising their roles from the 1993 original. We also are joined by Ted Lasso's Hannah Waddingham and Veep's Tony Hale and Sam Richardson. In this follow-up, it's 29 years later, and 3 high school students must work together to stop the Sanderson sisters who have returned to present-day Salem. I don't expect this movie to be Oscar quality or anything like this, but I'm looking for something to get me in the spooky season mood, maybe give me a couple of good laughs, and maybe a little bit of creepiness as well. This was a movie, the original was something that was kind of a Halloween staple for us. Watched it repeatedly most years. And I'm going to come back to this one just for nostalgia's sake, and hopefully it's good. What did you think of the trailer for this, Chris?
I think the movie looks like a lot of fun. You know, like you, Hocus Pocus is one of those Halloween staple films. I saw it in theaters when it first came out. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. So long ago. So yeah, this is something I'm definitely going to watch when it comes out on Disney Plus. It kind of looks like it's a Disney Plus film. It doesn't look like it was ever meant to be a theatrical film, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Ouch,
I'm sorry.
Ouch.
I'm sorry. But Hocus Pocus has a huge fan base. I think the returning trio looks fantastic. They are falling right back into these roles. And like you said, Brian, I think this is going to be a really fun way to kind of kick off the Halloween season, especially if you're a fan of this film, which many people are. So we're going to get hit with the 1-2 punch for spooky season with Hocus Pocus 2, and then the following week, something we'll be talking about a little bit later, Werewolf by Night. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, so that's going to be directed by Ann Fletcher, written by Jen D'Angelo. And yeah, that will be on Disney Plus September 30th. So coming soon. So Chris, you walked us right into it. Werewolf by Night, moving into some Marvel stuff. So narrowly beating Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special to be the first ever holiday themed special from the MCU, according to this article.
So close.
Just by a couple of months. Yes. It was announced last year. Chris has been watching episodes from this for at least 6 months at this point. No, it's just an hour long. It's a single one-shot episode.
It's technically, they're calling it a Marvel Studios special presentation.
That's right. And we have a directorial debut from Michael Giacchino, someone that we've been talking about a lot recently. For his film scoring. He did Up, Spider-Man Homecoming, and many more. And this is going to star Gael Garcia Bernal, who was most recently an old, really excellent actor, as well as Laura Donnelly from The Nevers. And yeah, this looks completely tonally different from pretty much anything else we've seen from the MCU. The closest thing I can compare it to is something like Blade in terms of tone. I don't think it's going to be as R-rated as Blade, but I really like what they're going for, or what they seem to be going for from this initial trailer. The footage shown, it's a scene with a mysterious group of hunters being gathered by some sort of animatronic-looking zombie-like benefactor whose colleague Verussa, played by Harriet Sampson Harris, informs them that one of the creatures they'll be hunting is one of the hunters among them. What follows appears to be the MCU's most overt take on horror yet, with the Werewolf by Night violently taking out goons, Donnelly's character of Elsa Bloodstone fearing for her life in a cage, and in a pretty big surprise, something that I don't know if I'm going to say because it's probably spoilerific, and there's a character that's introduced that I didn't know previously. So yeah, but this is something that I'm ridiculously excited for. The fact that it's only 1 hour and a standalone is like, okay, give it to me immediately. This is so easy. I've enjoyed most of the Marvel shows, but obviously at 6 to 9 episodes, it's
a commitment.
It's a significant commitment in comparison to
and
this.
they don't always pay off, you know. So
yes, exactly. They can be varying in quality, especially the endings. So
yes,
a nice one shot, real quick, in and out. October 7th. This will be coming to Disney Plus. That's Werewolf by Night. Moving on, we also have something that I've been talking about as one of my most anticipated for the relatively recent or the near future MCU stuff. Secret Invasion finally got its first trailer. The premise of this show: a faction of shape-shifting aliens, the Skrulls, have infiltrated all aspects of life on Earth. So this goes back to the second in the latest Spider-Man trilogy. We got hints of this. Samuel L. Jackson was revealed to not be himself and be played by someone else. I think from this trailer, we see that it was very much his doing, and it's intentional that he's not wanting to be out in public. And we're going to get all the backstory for this because there's been an infiltration and he's trying to root it out. I think this is the beginning of people feeling like the phase is going to start coming together. Like I said, pulling that far back relatively in the MCU with the second Spider-Man movie, and probably bringing in some of the stuff from the more recent content as well, of course. I think this is going to be really great. Obviously, we have Samuel L. Jackson back, so it's hard to go wrong there. We also have Ben Mendelsohn, Kobe Smulders, Kingsley Ben-Adir, Olivia Colman, Martin Freeman, Don Cheadle. So we're going to have some classic MCU cast here as well. What did you think of this first trailer?
Brian, I'm incredibly excited for this show because we're finally getting back into political thriller territory. You know, political thriller, alien invasion.
Yes.
Phase 4 of the MCU has been very comedy oriented, even when they're trying to, change up the genres a little bit, like with Doctor Strange and some of its more horror elements, you know? So I'm excited for us to get back to something maybe a little more serious, and I'm hoping that ends up being the case with Secret Invasion. You mentioned that we have kind of known that Fury's been replaced by Talos since Spider-Man Far From Home. I was on C4S Villains last week where we did a full breakdown of all D23, and we talked about this trailer, and I was talking about how I think it might go back even further than Spider-Man No Way Home, and I was theorizing that I don't think we've seen the real Nick Fury since Captain America Winter Soldier. I think that was the last time we actually saw the genuine Nick Fury in the MCU, mostly because in Captain Marvel, there's a very silly line in which he mentions that he can't eat toast if it's sliced diagonally. And his first appearance after Captain America Winter Soldier in Age of Ultron, there's a scene where he's eating a piece of toast and it's cut diagonally. So I personally think, especially in this trailer, Maria Hill's talking about how she's called him so many times over the years and he's never deemed coming back to Earth, anything that's happening on Earth, worthy of him returning until now. So I'm just putting it out there now. My theory is that we haven't seen the real Nick Fury in a very long time. It's even possible that the Fury that we saw get blipped in Infinity War was Talos imitating Nick Fury. So I'm very interested to see if I'm right or wrong when the show airs. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun week to week trying to figure out who's been a Skrull and who hasn't in the MCU. But based on what we see in this trailer, I think it's going to be a really intriguing and interesting outing for the MCU. So I'm excited, dude.
Yes. We miss you, Christian. We should have the
I don't have the damn
track. The
soundboard.
Yeah, that's okay. Soundboard. That's okay. But yeah, so Secret Invasion trailer's out now. Definitely check that out if you haven't at this point. Really excited to that one. All right, we've also got a decent amount of casting news for Marvel's Thunderbolts. So we have This is a supervillain team-up movie that will see Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, both managing a team made up of David Harbour's Red Guardian, Hannah John Kamen's Ghost, Wyatt Russell's U.S. Agent, Olga Kurylenko's Taskmaster, Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova, and Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. I don't know too much about the Thunderbolts, so I'm going to lean on you for this one, Chris. But obviously, we've got the who's who of the recent kind of villains or pseudo villains here in this group. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character was introduced in The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Definitely planting the seeds for this. What can you tell us about Thunderbolts, and how are you feeling about this one?
I think the easiest way, unfortunately, to describe the Thunderbolts to like general audiences is that they are kind of like the Suicide Squad, except they don't have bombs in their heads. Like they're not doing the missions while being threatened to be killed in any capacity. They're almost like an anti-hero or evil Avengers team in a way. But Brian, the casting news for Thunderbolts, I personally think is the most exciting news that we got out of this showcase at D23. I love that we're getting David Harbour back as Red Guardian. He was my favorite part of the Black Widow film, especially his relationship with Yelena, Florence Pugh's character. They have a very interesting father-daughter dynamic that I think is going to be a lot of fun. Having Sebastian Stan come back and play off of Wyatt Russell's U.S. Agent again. You know, we just saw them in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They don't really get along. He's essentially a fake Captain America. So I'm really interested to see that dynamic between the two of them. Watching Red Guardian interact with Bucky Barnes could be fun, considering all the fake stories he told in Black Widow about having interacted with Captain America over the course of his career. So I just think there's a lot of fun to be had with this crew of characters. And obviously seeing more of Julia Louis-Dreyfus in the MCU is fantastic. Like I have loved her since Seinfeld. She's a great actress, incredibly funny, and I think she's an excellent addition to the MCU. So to see her in a larger capacity instead of just these kind of cameo tags and stuff in these other projects, I'm very, very excited for. So I think this film's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people on the internet have critiqued that like majority of the Thunderbolts team currently is comprised of super soldiers. And I get it. You're not wrong. You know, the power set is
go for the best.
Yeah, you know, the power set's not necessarily diverse on this team, but I don't think that matters very much considering all the characters are going to be really fun and interesting.
The personalities.
Exactly. So I think once you see the movie, you're going to forget all about that. And even though it's not true to the comics and the Thunderbolts have a more diverse power set among their team in the comic books, I still think what we have in the MCU with these characters is going to make the film a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, I can't wait.
That's Marvel's Thunderbolts, a bunch of casting news announced there. We also have some more casting news for the next Captain America movie, Captain America New World Order. So Tim Blake Nelson is reprising his role from Incredible Hulk as the villain, the leader. I don't remember too much about this character, but I do always appreciate Tim Blake Nelson. Definitely a quality actor. Obviously, Anthony Mackie is going to be playing Captain America in this one. We also have Nigerian-American filmmaker Julius Ona is going to be directing this, and it's written by the head writer and creator of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Malcolm Spellman. So, yeah, I think that was...
Carl Lumley is going to be returning
as well. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said Carl Lumley is going to be returning as Isaiah Bradley, which is very exciting. And you just mentioned the other...
Shira Haas
the other actress.
is going to be there as well, playing Sabra.
And did you say Danny Ramirez is coming back? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think
Danny Ramirez is going to be coming back as the Falcon.
Sorry,
Anthony Mackie's new sidekick. So he'll be picking up the mantle of the Falcon while Sam Wilson has picked up the mantle of Captain America. But I definitely think, Brian, that the most exciting piece of news from this tidbit is Tim Blake Nelson coming back to the MCU after 14 years. Like, he had a very minor role in The Incredible Hulk. For 14 years, we've been like, when is the leader going to come back? But, you know, the rights have been tangled, and like, I'm sure procuring Tim Blake Nelson and convincing him to come back to the MCU in and of itself was a relatively big feat for Kevin Feige. You know, I'm sure there had to be something juicy for him to chew on to come back, considering that the leader in the comic books is a a dude with a huge head. He has green skin and he's incredibly intelligent. So if they're going to adapt the look to the MCU, which I know the MCU's gotten more comic book oriented in how it adapts costumes and characters over the years, but he's a very silly looking character. So I'm sure the script has to be good for Tim Blake Nelson to sign on for it. But incredibly excited about this. I love all the Captain America movies, so I can't wait to see what they do with this next one.
So you didn't bring it up, but and I know a lot of these things we can't see the trailers for that were actually shown, but Star Wars The Bad Batch season 2 coming January 2023. It's going to be 16 episodes, 2 episodes premiering on January 4th, and then it's going to be happening weekly. I haven't seen this show, but I know Star Wars fans will be super excited about more animated shows. We also have Star Wars Tales of the Jedi original shorts, and a first trailer was dropped for that. That'll be out October 26th, which shows 6 original stories that focus on Ahsoka, Qui-Gon Jinn, Count Dooku, and more at different parts of their lives. So yeah, a couple cool Star Wars things that they're going to be coming out relatively soon as well. Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about from these releases? There's so many live action Disney things that are at various levels of production, and we haven't really seen much from. We'll see how those are. You know, I'll probably see them and we'll talk about them then. But
yeah, I might end up seeing them in theaters. It all depends on, what my wife wants to do. As I've mentioned here on the podcast before, I'm not really a big fan of these live action adaptations of original animation, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what the future brings. But yeah, if you want a more in-depth conversation about everything that was announced at D23, as Brian mentioned earlier, we have the IGN links in the show notes. And then you could also go over to the C4S YouTube channel, careful for spoilers, and check out our discussion about the D23 announcements there as well. So
yeah, so moving into some stuff that's coming out this week, starting with TV, we have a new series called Reboot coming to Hulu this Tuesday, the 20th. So this is a comedy series created by Steven Levitan. He's created such series as Just Shoot Me, Stark Raving Mad, and Modern Family. Been in TV for a long time, a bunch of successful shows from this guy. This show is about the dysfunctional cast of an early 2000s hit sitcom called Step Right Up, who must face their unresolved issues and navigate social media cancel culture when a young writer pitches a reboot of their show. So very much of the times in the age of reboots, going to be a kind of meta comedy about that. Very fitting for us talking about Clerks III this week. Very much in that same vein.
Definitely
looking back on a career, a successful career. The cast here looks really solid. Keegan-Michael Key, Johnny Knoxville, and Judy Greer starring. And the trailer looks pretty funny. This is something that I could definitely see myself watching, and it's on Hulu this Tuesday. Moving on, we also have something that we've talked about a good deal as it's gone through production and had a few trailers, but Andor is finally coming out this Wednesday on the 21st. This is the newest Star Wars show created by Tony Gilroy for Disney+. It's a prequel to the Rogue One movie and follows thief-turned-rebel spy Cassian Andor during the 5 years before the events of the film. It also stars Diego Luna, Genevieve O'Reilly, Stellan Skarsgård, Adria Arjona, Denise Go, and many more. It's going to be 12 episodes this season, and the first 3 episodes are coming out on the 21st, and then it's going to be weekly from there. both of the trailers that I've seen for this have looked really good. The first one was kind of action oriented, and we got a little bit more of kind of what's happening in the plot for the second. I think both looked really solid, and Rogue One is really interesting in the perspective that it's showing in the Star Wars universe. And I think they're really going to expand upon that and show us a side of the Rebels that maybe has only been hinted at more so in the other extended Star Wars universe, at least aside from the animated ones. I can't speak to those. So it probably has been done. I apologize, Star Wars fans. But that's Andor, Chris. I know we're pretty excited for this one. We've talked a good deal about it.
I'm certainly intrigued. I don't know if I've mentioned it on this show before, but I can't seem to get very excited about Andor for some reason. I am interested in them bringing, a spy thriller story to the Star Wars universe. I'm excited that we're really going to be digging into the war aspect of Star Wars. It's something that's kind of been lacking in Star Wars media for a very long time. I think it's tough for a company like Disney to create content like this that may be a little darker. But I'm excited that we're going to get to see more of Andor. It'll be interesting. The way the show is laid out is also kind of intriguing. Each 3 episodes is going to be a contained story, and then the show is going to time jump as they go into the next story. So the entirety of Andor, the first 2 seasons, the 24 episodes, is supposed to span a 5-year period prior to Rogue One taking place. So it'll be interesting how they handle those time jumps, what characters we're going to end up seeing, how we're going to see the transition from, the fall of the Republic to the full-fledged Galactic Empire, and how Cassian Andor kind of handles that. So there are aspects of the show that I'm intrigued by, but I'm like I said on Villains last week, I'm just going to let the show wash over me. I really don't have a lot of expectations about it, so I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I knew it took place over the 5 years in that time period. I didn't know it was so structured in terms of the time jumps, though. That's pretty cool.
In the first,
it's like 4 movies per season.
Yeah, to my understanding, the first season is going to be the first 4 years of the 5-year period. And then season 2, the second 12 episodes, will be the 5th year, leading up to Rogue One, I suppose.
Wow. Okay. I'm really looking forward to this one. So that's Andor. That'll be out on Disney Plus this Wednesday, the first 3 episodes. Moving into some movies that are coming out this week. Coming to Peacock this Wednesday, we have Meet Cute. So this is a romantic comedy starring Kaylee Cuoco and Pete Davidson, who is just having a full-fledged, becoming a movie star right now. In the last few years, Pete Davidson, Kaylee Cuoco, obviously huge success on The Big Bang Theory and The Flight Attendant as well.
It's a great
Very
show.
Successful show. This is directed by Alex Lemmon, and the synopsis, the film will follow Manhattan native Sheila, who, quote, discovers a time machine in a nail salon and uses it to continually fix elements of a date she had the previous night. This is a genre that we've seen a good deal. We covered things like About Time on the podcast. We were all big fans of Palm Springs, a time loop movie
we
that
had a
was
whole
really hilarious
time
and
travel month.
Yes.
I believe in 2019 we had the time travel month.
So very much fans of this. This is a pretty easy sell, especially with these two in the leads. Looks really funny. Both of them look charming. And yeah, it'll be on Peacock this Wednesday. That's Meet Cute. We also, coming to theaters this Friday, have Don't Worry, Darling. And if you're on social media, specifically Twitter, you've definitely heard of something about Don't Worry, Darling. It's not getting the greatest critical reception right now, but I really liked Olivia Wilde's directorial debut, Booksmart, in 2019. I thought that was a great movie. So I was really looking forward to this. The screenplay is written by Katie Silberman, based on a story by Carrie Van Dyke, Shane Van Dyke, and Silberman, and stars Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, Olivia Wilde herself, Gemma Chan, Kiki Lane, Nick Kroll, and Chris Pine. The premise of this: Alice and Jack Chambers are a young, happy couple in the 50s, living in the seemingly perfect company town of Victory, California, which has been created and paid for by the mysterious company for which Jack works. as things progress, Florence Pugh's character starts to become suspicious about what's actually happening with this company, and things start getting going awry. This movie is being compared to the Stepford Wives. Definitely seems in that same kind of genre of the darkness behind the idealized American family sort of thing. The trailers for this movie looked pretty good. Even though the critical reception, I feel like there's so much baggage around this movie for, I think, unfortunately, for worse. And I'm not sure if the critics are responding to that or not, but I'm going to try and go into this one with an unbiased opinion, because I think conceptually I'm here for it. And the trailer looked really good for me. So
I agree. This is something that both my wife and I want to go see. So regardless of, what's transpired behind the scenes and how true all those things are, we're definitely going to check it out in theaters as well.
So yeah, that's Don't Worry, Darling. That'll be in theaters this Friday. A movie that needs no introduction, and we've talked about at length, James Cameron's Avatar from 2009. The remaster is coming to theaters again this Friday. It's going to make a bunch more money. It's going to look incredible. I haven't got my tickets yet for this, and this is going to be my reminder to myself to buy tickets tonight, because I have to see this movie again in 3D. If you're one of the few people who hasn't seen this movie or hasn't seen it in 3D or in theaters, treat yourself and go watch this in theaters, because it's what movies are all about. James Cameron is using all the tools of cinema and spectacle to entertain us. And it's a story that we constantly need reminding of, unfortunately, and is still dire and relevant, even if it's been rehashed throughout time in other stories as well. This is definitely worth watching leading up to Avatar: The Way of Water. That'll be out at the end of the year in December. So go check that out, Avatar. James Cameron's really like he's hurting for cash right now.
Oh yeah, really suffering. I feel so bad for him.
So moving into something that's coming to Netflix this Friday, we have A Jazzman's Blues. So this is the latest, written, produced, and directed by Tyler Perry. It stars Joshua Boone, Amira Van, Solia Pfeiffer, Austin Scott, and Ryan Eggold, and is a tale of forbidden love and family drama that unravels 40 years of secrets and lies in the Deep South. This movie is already getting really good buzz. I think Tyler Perry is kind of at times known for a particular sort of movie, and he seems to be kind of going against the usual sort of stuff that he's been putting out. I think he's been doing a lot of stuff for Netflix for his last few releases, to varying degrees of critical reception. But this one has a solid trailer, is getting solid critical reviews from what I've seen, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. And that's going to be on Netflix this Friday. That's A Jazzman's Blues. Finally, coming to Paramount Plus this Friday, we have On the Come Up. So this follows 16-year-old Bree, who wants to be one of the greatest rappers of all time. Facing controversies and with an eviction notice staring down her family, Bree doesn't just want to make it, she has to make it. So this is based on an adaptation of Angie Thomas's novel. She also wrote another novel, The Hate You Give, which was recently adapted into a movie as well. This is directed by Sana Lathan. This looks like a solid trailer. It's something that I had heard about the book prior, and looks like something that could definitely be a good movie, solid trailer. The only movie that I can really compare it to is something like 8 Mile, because of the battle rap nature of it. But I think this is going to be, although conceptually the same, or conceptually similar, very different tonally, it seems like. So yeah, that's on the come up. That'll be on Paramount Plus this Friday. And finally, that is it for the news, everyone.
You did.
I know it was a beefy one today.
Round of applause for Brian.
A couple of slip ups with my preparation. Apologies.
That's okay. Brian, I appreciate you delivering the wacky news so much and letting all of our loyal listeners and viewers know what's coming out this week. If you watching or listening to the show right now watch any of those things and want us to review them, email us at popaholicscast@gmail.com. If you just want to tell us what your experience was with those projects, let us know. We're always happy to hear from you guys. Brian and I are going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to jump into our review of Kevin Smith's new film, Clerks III.
That's how we did it in the 90s, son!
Can't catch my breath, man.
Really? Should I try mouth stuff?
What is this, a Tinder date? Get off of me. Oh, shit.
Mr. Dante! I need an ambulance at the Quick Stop!
Saved my life, man. Wish I had a life worth saving.
What are you talking about?
Sit around and watch the same movies over and over.
I always thought you could have made a cool movie.
You're right. I'm living on borrowed time. No more watching movies. I'm gonna make a movie!
That was from the trailer of Kevin Smith's new film, Clerks III. The summary of this film is Dante, Elias, and Jay and Silent Bob are enlisted by Randall after a heart attack to make a movie about the convenience store that started it all. Obviously, it's directed by Kevin Smith. It's written by Kevin Smith, with a score by James L. Venable, cinematography by Liren Kahanov. This film only cost $7 million to make, which is incredibly low considering the current industry standards. And so far, as of this recording, it's grossed around $1.1 million. I'm sure that number is going to go up over time. It's kind of an unconventional rollout. The film itself is being released through Fathom Events, and then Kevin Smith is also taking it on tour, as he has with his last couple of films. The cast stars...
I think
Brian,
these two are pretty much like 2 days of screenings at this point, right? That 1.1 million is like the first 2 days of Fathom screenings, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. The film stars Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Marilyn Gigliotti, Rosario Dawson, Trevor Furman, Jason Mewes, Kevin Smith, and Austin Zajur. We're going to do what we normally do on the show. We're going to give our non-spoiler review first. That way, all of you that haven't seen the movie yet, considering it is a limited release, can listen to our non-spoiler thoughts and then go out and see it yourself. And then Brian and I are going to put up a spoiler bumper, and we'll dive a little deeper into the movie, talk about some standout moments, maybe expand on our non-spoiler thoughts a little more with specifics, and then we'll end the episode with our final thoughts. So, that being said, Brian, what are your non-spoiler thoughts on Clerks III?
So, we've done, I think, multiple months, at least a full month of Kevin Smith, deep dive into most of the View Askew movies. So I've seen pretty much all of them at this point in the View Askew proper. Not every single Kevin Smith movie, but most. And I can safely say that I'm a fan of these. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I needed that movie when it came out, and I've come back to it multiple times, and it really hits this sweet comfort food spot for me. Coming off of that, which is a sweet movie, but not something that hit me very deeply emotionally. Coming on to this, I was not necessarily expecting to kind of get a bit of a gut punch that this movie became. This movie worked for me, plain and simple, and I don't think it's for everyone. It's very much the culmination of a ton of other movies filled with Easter egg references and fun new additions in terms of in universe brands and things like this, and all of the cameos that you would expect of people coming back here in various capacities. The script can feel a little bit clunky at times, and the emotional bits can kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. But even being aware of that in the moment, with the music, with the performances mostly, I got swept up in it and found myself tearing up and crying multiple times throughout this movie. And by the end, just full on, nearly fighting off weeping, just very emotionally affected. And it's really stuck with me. And what this movie ultimately is kind of like saying, it snuck up on me. That's the best way I could say it. It's got the silly juvenile comedy here, although I think it's much less crude than Clerks II is. Clerks II really leans into the crudeness,
especially that third act.
Yes, and it's a more stylish movie too in some ways, probably a significantly more expensive movie as well, I would say. But this movie, we get so many characters that non-actors who you wouldn't expect to be able to come back for a movie like this necessarily. You get so many faces that you haven't seen in, since the first movie, on top of all of the great View Askew characters throughout. I love meta movies, and this is just definitionally a meta movie. It's not always working on all cylinders. Like I said, the writing is not perfect, but looking back with Kevin Smith, allowing us to look back with him after this obviously very traumatic event that he went through with a heart attack, which is very integral to the plot of this movie, as you know from the trailer, that he survived. And he's just so clearly someone who is grateful to be alive. Mm-hmm. And for us to be able to look back with him in this fun way and get this, if you've listened to him talk, which he's talked so much throughout the course of the years, that so many of the stories that he's referencing or showing us here, we know already, but it's fun to see them played out anyway. So it just feels like this kind of cozy, beautiful little homage to a life that he's really grateful for. And you can't help but, I couldn't help but get swept up in it. So I really enjoyed this movie, even though it's got flaws. And I had a great time with it. So if you aren't a big fan of View Askew, it's not an entry point movie by any stretch of the imagination. Definitely not. But I think there's elements to be enjoyed regardless. But yeah, it's definitely like not the place to start in terms of the Kevin Smith movies, of course.
I completely agree. And Brian, I too got very emotional over the course of this movie. I have to say that, and I've said this before on the podcast during our View Askew month that we did when we rewatched all those films, as Brian mentioned, leading up to Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I am a gigantic fan and have always been a gigantic fan of Kevin Smith for majority of my life. I saw all of his films when I was very young. I started listening to Smodcast in 2007 when he first started recording it. He is one of the reasons I went to film school. He showed that, average people could make movies if they wanted to. He's one of the reasons why I enjoy making this show, because of all the podcasting and recording that he's done over the years. I used to watch all of the Evening with Kevin Smith films. I used to own all of those and vigorously consume them every time a new one came out. So I think it's safe to say that I couldn't go into this film totally objectively. I absolutely have a bias toward Kevin Smith, and it's tough for me to talk about this movie without bringing all that to the table, because he means so much to me as a creator and as a person, to be totally frank. This movie, as Brian mentioned, is extremely meta. On Twitter, after I saw the movie, I referred to this as the cinematic equivalent, or the cinematic representation of an Ouroboros. It's literally the snake eating its own tail. Randall's having Kevin Smith's heart attack and then making a movie, Clerks, essentially the first movie that Kevin Smith ever made. When Kevin Smith had his heart attack, he immediately wanted to make Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. So while it's not the same film, all of the personal experience is there. And it's so strange watching this movie. I've never seen a movie where it revels so much in its metacontextual nature and has so many inside jokes for Kevin Smith fans. This is jam-packed. And I've never seen a movie so dense where I've understood literally every single inside joke. And I walked out of the film going, how is it possible for an average person to consume this film? And
yeah, sure.
As a an amateur film critic here on the podcast, we try to be as objective as possible and look at art through an objective lens. But I don't think the metacontextual nature and subjectiveness of this film is necessarily to the film's detriment, because, as Brian mentioned, it's comedic like all of Kevin Smith's other films, but it's also extremely heartfelt. So I think it does have a genuine message to deliver, and I think that an average viewer could potentially, I'd be interested to hear, get something out of this movie despite not having followed Kevin Smith for as long as the majority of people who are going out to see this film currently, you know, and it's limited release. Brian, you mentioned Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and how you felt about that film a little bit. I think if Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is, you know, the movie, like I said, the movie that Kevin Smith wanted to make after his heart attack, it was kind of an excuse to revisit these characters, have a party with all of his friends, and celebrate the fact that he didn't die. You know? This film feels more like him having taken some time and mulled over his experience, and it feels more of a meditation on like getting old and acceptance and letting things go. So in a way, while Jay and Silent Bob Reboot feels goofy and does have some heart to it, this really feels like, I think, one of the most mature projects Kevin Smith has ever made. And as you mentioned, over the course of the movie, I was laughing and in tears, but it also touched me deeply to the point where even 12 after seeing the film, I was still kind of thinking about its messaging. And that's, what more can you ask for when walking out of a movie theater, you know, if something can impact you to that degree. So what am I saying?
You hated this movie. You'll never watch it again.
Exactly.
We get it.
I really enjoyed the movie. I think, as I mentioned, it's Kevin Smith's most mature piece of writing. I would be interested to see a general audience member go see this movie and see what their perspective is on it. But I really do think this film is for the diehards and for Kevin Smith himself. You know, he's spoken on numerous occasions about how he loves himself first and foremost. He's his own biggest fan, is what he says. So, you know, as any director should, they should always put a piece of themselves in their work, and he certainly does that. So yeah, I think this is Brian O'Halloran's best performance in any of the Clerks films. I think it's Jeff Anderson's best performance. I even think it's Jason Mewes' best performance in any of the View Askew films because of how multifaceted and layered the character that Jason Mewes is playing in this movie. He's playing himself from 1994, which is like it's so strange because he himself as an actor and as a person has been through so much and matured so much over his acting career. And he's gone from really low lows to where he is now, currently very healthy. He's a new father and everything. But the way he delivers Jason Mewes, some of his lines from the original Clerks is absolutely hysterical because you can tell that he's thinking about them now, probably more deeply than he ever has before. And it's just...
And we get references to him maybe not having been so good with lines in the past.
Exactly. So it's just a really fascinating film that I genuinely think has a lot of value, and I think audiences will pull a lot from if they go to see it. Brian, is there anything else you want to add in our non-spoiler review here?
No, I you know, this movie was $7 million. Reboot did really well. I'm hopeful that Kevin Smith's got a big enough following that it will make plenty of money and he'll be able to continue making movies because, you know, he's definitively preaching to the choir here. But if you're in for it, it works. And I'll keep seeing his movies if he's going to keep making them, even if they're not in the View Askew universe. I think he did a really nice kind of message to the audience that was a part of, I'm not sure if it'll be for all the screenings, but for the Fathom event, he spoke about the movie a bit, and there was some behind the scenes stuff that was pretty nice as well. Just everyone on his crew seems to really enjoy working with him, which just kind of speaks volumes to the kind of environment. And I love that as well, because that's something that's rare in itself, I think.
I completely agree. And, you know, the message that you're talking about plays during the credits of the film. So I would hope, considering that this could potentially be his last View Askew film, that it might be included in the home video release. But we'll see when that happens. All right.
Oh my gosh! Wait.
Yep.
Great soundtrack, front to back.
Always.
We didn't mention it. Starts with the Black Parade. You unfortunately missed this segment.
Yes.
But you will check it over time. But yeah, from front to back, really great musical choices throughout. Clearly, a good chunk of that $7 million was music budget.
Licensing all these songs, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, folks. So with that, if it's not clear, Brian and I both really enjoyed the film. If you can see it during this limited release window, I highly recommend doing so. As I mentioned, he's also touring it around the country, so I believe you can go to clerks3movie.com, not that we're sponsored or anything, but go to clerks3movie.com, and you can buy tickets to the Clerks 3 convenience tour, is what it's called. So
I was lucky enough. They're doing it again. I saw the Reboot Roadshow at Tampa Theater locally in town. They're doing the same thing. He's coming back to Tampa Theater again for this one. So
are you gonna
definitely
do it a second time?
I don't think so. Not this time. But I enjoyed it last time, and I listened to all his podcasts so much. It's like I've heard him talk so much that it is cool to see him. But
I will admit,
I might miss this one.
Yesterday I did stare at the convenience store website for a little while and was like, do I want to do this? And then I was like, do I want to pay for the VIP tickets to like meet Kevin Smith and get a signed copy of Clerks 3? And there are very few people in life that cause me to act in this way, but this is so silly. I think I'm like genuinely afraid to meet Kevin Smith in person because of how much of an impact he's had on me. And I just cannot fathom what I could possibly say to him that he hasn't already heard a million times over, you know? But meeting him in person
so good
would
about
be
that, right?
That's quite fun.
Everyone says he's so gracious for that kind of thing.
Course,
it seems.
Of course, he loves that stuff.
So you didn't go for it.
I didn't end up buying the tickets, but there's still time. The Orlando showing isn't sold out yet, so we'll see what happens in the future here. All right, folks. With that, we're gonna go into our thoughts a little bit deeper and dive into spoilers. All right, Brian. So, what are some of your standout moments from Clerks 3? I have a couple that I want to talk about. Several that I just kind of want to, rattle off. They're more comedic, just things that inside jokes that maybe I really enjoyed, things that I noticed that I found to be funny. But
okay, start it off.
Okay. Things in the film that I really thought were just absolutely hilarious. Elias becoming a Satanist at the very beginning of the movie because he feels as though that him asking Jesus to smite Randall caused his heart attack.
He's a very impatient and fickle man. After his whole life, he could have, if he waited 5 minutes, I think he would have just had the opposite opinion, right?
Yes.
But maybe not, but it is a funny bit.
It is a funny bit, and it continues over the entire course of the movie. We're constantly seeing him.
is falling in line,
oh my
of course.
God. Yeah, Austin Zajer as Blockchain Coltrane is such a great character name.
He's the new Silent Bob.
Yep. For those that don't know, this is also Harley Quinn Smith's boyfriend. So Kevin Smith is still keeping it in the family and hiring those very close to him to be in his films. But I think he delivers a very funny performance, despite the fact that he really doesn't say anything until the very end of the movie. Like you said, he kind of is the new Silent Bob. The audition sequence when Randall and Dante are trying to audition people to be in Randall's movie. This is really the moment where you're like, Kevin Smith knows a shit ton of really talented people. We have Ben Affleck, we have Fred Armisen, we have Sarah Michelle Gellar, we have Freddie Prinze Jr. There's the moment where Chris Wood stepped onto the stage. I turned to Christian because, for those that don't know, Christian and I always have a heated discussion, and I will concede he's right. He's not probably right. He is right. Arcane versus Masters of the Universe Revelation. Those two fantasy animated shows came out around the same time. For our loyal listeners, Christian and I did a show swap last year, And neither of us made it through the opposite show. I wanted him to watch Masters of the Universe Revelation, and he wanted me to watch Arcane. But as soon as Chris Wood, the voice of He-Man, stepped onto stage, I just kind of smirked, turned to my side, and looked at Christian. We were seeing it together, and I was wondering what his reaction was going to be. Despite Chris Wood doing the He-Man impression in the movie, I'm sure that Christian must have gotten it. No reaction whatsoever. But like, we had both.
Couldn't care less.
Both Chris Wood and, as I mentioned, Sarah Michelle Gellar, the Tila in that show, came in, did a favor for Kevin Smith to make a cameo in this movie. This sequence is just so much fun. Brian, do you have anything you wanted to add about this sequence?
This is the moment, one of the moments where it's just like it pays off completely, having seen everything, right? They're just throwing references the whole time. I'm going to blank on his name, but the character from Mallrats, who's in My Name is Earl, as well.
Oh,
who's
Ethan Suplee.
Yes, his bit of course, just referencing back to Mallrats.
Dude, I've seen him in recent years, so I knew that he'd lost a lot of weight, but that dude is in fantastic shape.
Yeah, definitely hard to recognize.
Like, he's gotten so jacked.
For sure. Yeah, but this moment is just so great. And then Fred Armisen's character throwing back. We got a bunch of hater tots throughout the course of this movie. But yeah, Ben Affleck was one of my favorites for sure. Just doing the Boston ridiculous thing.
I think in the credits he's credited as a character called Boston John or something. Like he's not even playing himself. I think some of these people are supposed to be playing themselves.
Yeah, right.
But I know Freddie Prinze Jr. is actually playing himself in the film, which is hilarious.
Yeah, he says his name, right?
Yeah.
I know someone just says their name.
Yeah, but this sequence is
moment.
so much fun. What else? Oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure I had another one. Oh, as I mentioned earlier, Jason Mewes standing outside of the Quick Stop reciting lines as Jay from Clerks and like really embellishing the delivery is absolutely hilarious. For those that don't know, Brian kind of mentioned it earlier.
Like theatrical stage kind of like
so
dramatic.
Good. It's so funny. For those that don't know, Jason Mewes had an incredibly difficult time being on camera when Kevin Smith first shot the original Clerks back in 1994. And the sequence that was in the film where he asked everybody to go back into the store and they had to just roll the camera so he could dance, that actually happened when they were shooting the original film. So those are the moments I was talking about earlier, where if you have been following and listening to Kevin Smith for all his career, those are the inside jokes that kind of like really pay off and feel really earned. Because now, I mean, Jason Mewes has been in a ton of movies, even some outside of films that Kevin Smith has directed.
Directed his own movie as well.
Yep, absolutely. So he's a professional in the industry now. And watching him try to like Shakespeare up Jay's dialogue is just absolutely ridiculous.
Oh yeah, no, they're consistently great. Yeah, I have such a fondness for the characters, even though I don't know, I can understand why they could maybe be grating to some, but they're still effective for me even after all these years.
You know, you and I both grew up in the 90s. And I feel as though that Jay and Silent Bob are quintessential staples of that era of media, you know, like Jay and Silent Bob, The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead. You know, there are a ton of characters in media that when you look at them, you immediately are taken back to a specific era. And that's
how we did it in the 90s, bro.
That's how we did it in the 90s, son. That's I completely agree with you. Like they just take me back to a happier place when I see them on screen. So I've rambled a ton about a bunch of little small things that I found really enjoyable in the film. Brian, what are some of your standout moments, things that you really enjoyed? And it doesn't have to be comedic. We can go serious. I have some serious moments that I want to talk about too. Because as we mentioned in our non-spoiler review, this film brought the tears.
Definitely did. Yeah, the audition cameo scene was one of my like funny / like exciting moments that really stood out. I think we kind of get the inverse of the end of Clerks 2 in jail scene, where Randall blows up on Dante and kind of calls him out. We get the similar thing with Dante being drunk here. We get the added element of the high school reporter and her parents, one of which is Mark Bernardin.
Dude,
which is
Mark Bernardin, I've been listening. I've been listening to him talk on Fat Man on Batman for months about how Kevin Smith put him in the movie, but he has no dialogue at all.
Yes.
And I was just waiting for him to appear. I was laughing so hard in those moments.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. He's like the father who's been at the strip club spending all the money and just is looking ashamed, has his tail between his legs, says a lot without saying anything.
Yeah.
Very well done.
It's great.
And the fact that they all think it's just part of the scripted dialogue when he just goes off script and starts blowing up on him genuinely is so funny. It's such a great tension relief before the scene ultimately goes where it goes. And yeah, it was really heavy. And both of the scenes where the heart attacks actually happen, I thought were really effectively done and like stressed me out.
Oh yeah.
Really, really effectively. Yeah. So the only other one, which is kind of like throughout the course of the movie, is the way that Becky's character is used.
Shocking. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. So we find out relatively early on that Rosario Dawson's character, who we find out at the end of Clerks is pregnant with Dante's child, has, we only find out later that it was a drunk driving accident that she was killed in. But we find out that her and her unborn daughter were killed basically right after the events of Clerks within, 6-8 months or whatever it was. So the way that we basically have Force ghosts throughout the course of this movie without calling them Force ghosts. I'm sure Kevin Smith would be sympathetic to that.
In an
language.
interview, I recently watched an interview with Rosario Dawson talking about her role in Clerks 3. And she said that when Kevin came to her and positioned Becky's role in the film, he positioned it to her as her being a Force ghost. But she said in the interview that she didn't realize that they wouldn't have the budget to make her look like a Force ghost.
The blue tinge.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So she's literally just there on screen. I found that to be so fascinating.
It worked, though. It worked
does.
perfectly.
It does work.
And it was surprising. It's the kind of thing that he doesn't often do these kind of, obviously with something like Dogma, the whole movie is like that. But aside from that, he doesn't often do these kind of like supernatural or kind of something that's maybe not happening, but happening in his movies. So I thought it was really, it felt fresh for him. And the conversations range from hilarious to devastating, as we learn what happens throughout the course of it. And leading up to the ending, where we see her for the final time watching the story of his life. It is just, it seems so obvious after getting there, but it snuck up on me so effectively, this idea of your life flashing before your eyes, which is something that's said throughout the course of the movie, and how this process of going through this is recreating it, retreading this part of his life and recontextualizing it. And it was just so poignant and really hit me so deeply and they're together. So they get to be together, obviously, again, which is really sweet. Him and Becky. And that the line, which I did criticize some of the writing in the movie, but this ending made it so worthwhile when he says, I trust the director. Yeah. It's like, it's out of my hands now. I've done what I can, and just acceptance. And there's something just so beautiful and necessary about that kind of thing. And as you said, coming off Reboot, a very silly movie to a large degree, we really are getting some time away to get this graciousness for being alive and kind of providing some of that deeper messaging that he's always touched on the religious stuff throughout the course of it. But here it really feels as deep as it ever has, I think, ultimately. Yeah, this is the emotional moment that I also wanted to talk about. And it's honestly, I don't know why I was surprised that, I feel kind of ashamed for being surprised that he was capable of delivering such a emotional and poignant moment, because he's talked about this concept for a long time, the concept of like the life review. We here on the podcast, we've reviewed Defending Your Life, which is another film that very much dives into the concept of your life review. When you pass or when you're about to pass, many people who have
experienced near-death experience have alluded to and described something similar to this concept, right? Kevin Smith was recently on the Steve-O podcast. Sorry, Christian, we're doing a ton of plugging for other podcasts in this episode, but during that episode, it got surprisingly spiritual, considering, he was talking to Steve-O, but they had a very in-depth conversation about the life review and how some people believe that it is a way for you to experience your entire life, but experience it in a way where you feel all the feelings of those that you affected over the course of your life, which I think is a really interesting and beautiful concept. But Kevin Smith framing it in this way, where Randall has re-edited his movie to make Dante the main character, and considering over the course of the entire film, we are seeing how Randall is so adamant about the fact that he is the main character of his life, until Dante kind of points out that it really is a story of the two of them. They've been best friends their entire lives. Like, every important moment involves both of them. So for him to show the recut film to Dante, and then for us to see that scene that you were talking about with the deceased Rosario Dawson and Dante sitting in the movie theater and viewing this reel of all these important moments of his life, was just so brilliant and so touching. And I have to be honest, if I wasn't sitting next to Christian and a complete stranger, I would have been sobbing uncontrollably. But I had to be like sucking in the tears.
Put on a tough face.
Yeah, like oh, my eyes itchy, But oh my God, it just really struck me, and it's so beautiful. And that last line that you talked about with Dante, just kind of, as I mentioned, letting go and accepting that he's no longer going to be in the picture and that he trusts the director. I couldn't have imagined the first time that I watched the original Clerks that this would be the send-off for one of its characters. Jokingly, in the original cut of Clerks, Dante was always supposed to die. A robber was supposed to come into the store and shoot him at the very end of the day. And they allude to that, and they make fun of that in this movie. It's one of the jokes that they make. But it's amazing that Kevin Smith finally got to kill Dante, but instead of it being a punchline, it was this, as you said, incredibly poignant and emotional moment. I just couldn't be happier about it. It really stuck with me.
And I want to shout out Randall's performance in this moment too. You said that this is maybe the best he's been. I think he's really shining.
Jeff Anderson doesn't even consider himself an actor. He doesn't like acting. And it was a bit of a chore for Kevin to get him to come back for this movie. But I like you said, he is delivering quite the performance.
Yeah, it's really working here. Yeah.
I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. Oh my God.
I know, it really is so sweet.
That being said, speaking about Brian O'Halloran and his performance over the course of the film and everything he does, while everything he does in that last scene is excellent, there are scenes over the course of the film that are meant to be dramatic, and they do land for me emotionally still. But Brian and I were kind of talking about this before mics rolled, that whether it be the writing or the editing, there are portions that come off a bit silly. There's a scene where Jane, Silent Bob, and Elias and everyone involved with the movie try to sneak back into the movies from Clerks II so they can recreate the donkey show scene from the third act of that film as part of the movie. And Dante, when he steps outside of the movies, has essentially a panic attack. And I'll say this, despite how I feel about the end of this scene, and over the course of the last 3 years, experiencing what a panic attack feels like myself, it was a very accurate depiction of a panic attack. And it did give me a little anxiety kind of just watching it. And I'm not alone. Over the course of the last 3 years in the pandemic, there are many people that have experienced this. But it is kind of goofy when he runs off frame toward the train tracks. I will say
it feels a little too much like Talladega Nights when Will Ferrell thinks he's on fire.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that level of spoof, it didn't take me out of it as much as it did you. But now that we're talking about it, it's like it's not that dissimilar.
Right. But it's also, I don't think Kevin's intent was for it to be comedic in nature or a spoof like we're talking about.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
But despite that, I do want to give kudos to Brian O'Halloran for really amping it up. You know, there were several scenes where he really had to tap into something. And I think he did a great job.
Oh yeah. Like the scene that I was talking about again, where it breaks from the actual script, but that's probably the shining moment for him in the movie. Just really effective work.
Are there any other moments that you want to point out before we wrap up here?
You know, I don't know if there really was anything specifically. The humor worked as well as it needed to. You know, I was laughing throughout the course of the movie. There's some stuff that feels a little low hanging fruit, but this is kind of his bag, you know. So I was largely there for it. But yeah, nothing that I have else specifically.
One last comedic moment that I want to point out that I thought was incredibly genius, and I'm glad that she decided to be in the movie because it makes the joke land much better. It's when Jeff Anderson is laying out on the operating room table, and Amy Sedaris is playing his doctor, and he's explaining the plot of The Mandalorian to Amy Sedaris, an actress from The Mandalorian, and she's pretending to be absolutely clueless about anything that he's saying. And had it been anybody else in that role, the joke just wouldn't have worked. So I'm really glad that Kevin was actually able to get Amy Sedaris to come and play the doctor, because it makes the joke that much better. And
it's a great shout out because her character is so consistently funny, just like the worst doctor, like a great doctor, but someone who's just constantly taking
her bedside manner is awful.
Happening?
Awful.
Horrible.
Incredibly talented, but like awful bedside manner.
Yes, but really funny. Yeah,
also, the dialogue in that scene, I've like heard verbatim come out of Kevin Smith's mouth probably a dozen times while he's talking about his heart attack. Like he literally just wrote down the story that he's told in press since he's had it in the script. So
yeah, for sure.
Very, very funny. Anything else that you want to say about Clerks 3, Brian?
No.
Final thoughts on Clerks 3. Let's say that.
I was not expecting this movie to affect me as much as it did. And it's not something where I would recommend it to anyone. As we said, we have put in the legwork that is required for the real emotional payoffs that have been built up over the course of 30 years. And it really is effective. It's really awesome to see someone who really doesn't often get the credit he deserves for changing pop culture how he did. We talked about it when we saw Clerk, the documentary that was made about his life, how he was really at the forefront of internet discussion boards and interacting with his audience, and has built up this fan base over time, created this cinematic universe in a way before it was popular, bringing Stan Lee much more into the public consciousness with Mallrats and helping usher in the comic book age of movies. And you know, going through various phases of critics thinking of him certain ways, but seeing that, like, reminding us why we love this guy and how he's humble enough to be gracious. And even if, like you said, he's his own biggest fan, there's something so nice and refreshing about someone who's just happy to be here and knows what they like making and who they like working with. And if they can make it happen, we'll do it. And I just love that. So I'm just happy for Kevin Smith and for all the people that work with him.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, he, like I mentioned, he is an inspiration to me in all my creative endeavors to always try to be doing things that you love doing. And that's why we make this podcast. Right, Brian?
This is it.
Yeah. Like I said, like you said, this movie's not for everybody, but I don't think that means it's a bad movie. I think Kevin Smith has earned the right to make a movie like this, and for those that have followed him for so long to enjoy this movie. So I think it was a fantastic send-off to the Clerks trilogy. That's crazy to say.
R.I.P. Don T.
And honestly, I look, Dan T. R.I.P.
Yeah,
Dan
excuse
T.
me.
But I really look forward to, obviously, all of Kevin Smith's future projects.
Tusk 2, let's go.
Yeah, he said he's making Tusk 2.
Hype.
What is that going to look like? I have no idea. But I'm interested. He's also working on kind of a retro.
Mallrats too?
He is kind of working on Mallrats, so that might
Heard
end
talk
up.
about it, maybe.
It originally was supposed to be a show, and then it was a movie, and then it was back to a show, and they lost a location during the pandemic, and so I know that I believe that he has actually finished the script for it at this point, though. So maybe that will end up being the final View Askew film. Regardless, if it isn't, I think this is a wonderful send off. He's also working right now on a more retro. I think he said it's set in 1986 about people that work in a movie theater. So I would be very excited to see what he has to do with that. But anyway, Clerks 3, if you have the opportunity to see it during its limited release, do so. Brian, thanks for coming by to talk about this movie with me. Where else can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at True Pop-O-Holic.
And you can find me on Twitter at Chris Conkling, talking about all things nerdy, comic books, television, movies, video games, collectibles. If it's nerdy, I'm talking about it. You can also find my writing on a monthly basis at carefulforspoilers.com. And then you can find Pop-O-Holics on Twitter at Pop-O-Holics. We're on Instagram at Pop-O-Holicscast. You can email us. You can email us at popaholicscast@gmail.com. As mentioned earlier in the show, we always love hearing from our loyal listeners and viewers. And with that, Brian, we're going to end the show the way we always do with Christian's TikTok of the week.
Want to know what I think is a little bit of bullshit? I grew this baby actually in my body for, 9 to 10 months. Sacrificed all that, and then you get this. Ready? See, Mama.